Hello friends, my name is Bunniness, and today I have a spoiler-free review for you of the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series. For those of you who are a little newer to my channel, a thing to know about me is that I am the worst at finishing series for a lot of different reasons. So when I started this booktube channel, I also started my unfinished series jar. So I pick something out of here every couple of months and I attempt to finish the series that I select. It's been going okay-ish. I did catch up on the Lunar Chronicles and now we're all waiting for the release of Winter, and last month I finished the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy by Laini Taylor. This is a YA fantasy / urban fantasy series that I would give an overall rating of 4 stars to, but I would not recommend universally. If you like YA fantasy, what are you doing? Check these out. If you like YA magical realism, I would also say to check these out because there's just something about Laini Taylor's writing that really reminds me of that genre and that I think you would appreciate here in this fantasy series. It's really Taylor's writing that elevates this series from what would normally be rather generic or tropey fantasy elements into something better. I will also mention that this does have a romance that anchors the story throughout the 3 books, and while it does have fantastic characters and moments of humor, it does often side with like melodrama. On the bright side, there are no love triangles. The first book is Daughter of Smoke and Bone, and this one was my favorite in the trilogy. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. In this first book, we meet our protagonist, Karu, who is a blue-haired art student living in Prague, and she's got quite a few secrets. The first is that her hair grows out of her head blue, and also she was raised by 4 monster-like creatures. They are the only family she's ever known, even though she knows very little about them and the world in which they inhabit. Karu goes around the world collecting teeth for Brimstone, who is a wish dealer. Things change when black handprints start to appear on the doorways that lead to Brimstone's shop. Karu finds herself cut off from her family, from Brimstone, and then comes face to face with an angel named Akiva, and off we go. Throughout the story, Karu finds the truth about who she is, who she's been working for, and about the worlds that she's inhabited. I really loved the first half of this book because it introduced us to such an amazing premise and imaginative worlds and real life locations that Taylor describes so beautifully. Plus we meet Karu and her best friend Susanna, who is amazing. The first half of the book is super action-packed, and the second half purposefully stalls to now kind of spill the truth about everything we've read in the first half and reveal everything. The reveals were a little bit predictable but very enjoyable. It was a good payoff. The romance in the first book felt a little bit insta-lovey, but then there is context that is introduced later that puts the entire thing into a perspective that makes it easier to swallow. Next up was Days of Blood and Starlight, and I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars. One of the reasons that I struggle with trilogies is that a lot of stories really don't need to be trilogies. If you think about trilogies as one long story, which they often are, the second book is the middle portion of that story. And when you think about the middle portion of your story, that's generally the least exciting portion of the story. To be clear, the fantastic writing and the characters that I love are all present here, but the pacing was off to me. We ambled around a little bit here because so much has changed for Karu in the second book, and she's very confused about what she should be doing. This is communicated effectively in the story, but just to the detriment of my own enjoyment of it. Karu is a bit broken here, and again it is perfectly in line with the story and what we learn and everything that happens to her, but it made me miss the Karu that I met in the first book. Also, a personal pet peeve of mine showed up in this book, and that is misunderstandings because characters will not communicate, they won't use their words. Yes, they all have very good reasons as to why they don't want to speak to each other, but there's only so much I started to say something but then I stopped myself that I can take before I get twitchy. Book 3 is Dreams of Gods and Monsters, and I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Everything that Laini Taylor's writing does in book 1 and 2, she does extra in book 3. I love flowery writing, and even I found myself pausing and going, girl, that is a lot of descriptions for one passionate look. I liked it though, and she takes all of these things that could be tropey and she makes them her own out of the sheer force of will of her descriptions. The writing is very musical, and you notice a kind of cadence woven throughout. There is this phrase that she repeats throughout the story, and it is terrible and terrible and terrible forever, amen. She echoes that in a lot of places that creates this kind of boom and boom and boom, boom, boom cadence that really takes the edge off of so many words because it is so musical and free-flowing. I really enjoyed this as a third book and as a wrap-up to a series. I read some reviews that hated on that ending, but I thought it worked really well with the rest of the story. It left one particular thread open, and I love what that said about how this ages-long war that we read about across 3 books is not going to be so easily solved. The entire theme of the books is just having hope to keep going and having hope that there can be a better tomorrow, if not a perfect one. There's no way that we could have ended on a complete happily ever after, and Taylor handled it well here because she gave us enough resolution where we felt satisfied, or I felt satisfied, but she also hinted towards, hey, there's still work to be done. I just also wanted to mention that there were a couple of characters introduced in the 2nd and 3rd books that I loved, including Ziri and Eliza. I don't want to say much about either of them because that would get spoilery, but just so you know that Ziri, Eliza, Hazael, they're just fantastic supporting characters. Susanna I already mentioned, and she is such a great best friend, and I love that friendship is such a strong theme throughout the books, especially because there is a very heavy romance element, but also the book says, hey, friendship is really important, people you care about, family, the family you choose is really important. I also wanted to mention this because I love that as the series went along, it kept adding elements that were really fantastic. Yes, the 1st book was my favorite of the series, but there was still new things to be found in books 2 and 3. I don't know if this was just me, but book 1 really had an adventure-y kind of feel to it, and the full scope of all the bad things that are happening isn't revealed until the end, and then book 2 and 3 kind of carry that more solemn feel to it, and all of the war and bad times that result and that are revealed to Karoo. That's mainly what I wanted to say about these books. Again, recommended if you read YA. If you're not regularly a YA reader, I would not say that this is the series to get you started into it or to dip your toe into that pool. It is very beautifully written though, especially if you like flowery and full rich writing. And overall, I enjoyed myself while I read these books, and I'm very happy that I finished the series. If you've read these books, I'd love to hear your take on them, and if you have any questions for me about my reading experience or about the books, please let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys soon. This is my first series review video, so we'll see how this goes. If you have any feedback for me on them, or if there's anything that you would like to hear about that I didn't touch on, also let me know about that kind of stuff down in the comments.